After the Wreckfest at Memphis, the FARC Super Series now heads to the famous Carbondale Raceway in Illinois, a track that's most famous for hosting the TM Master Cup Series. This triangular-shaped short track, a little over 3/4 length, has been a staple on the Master Cup calendar for many years, and now this season will also host a FARC race, which I believe is the first time FARC's ever been here. I may be mistaken on that. Another interesting trait that this track has is some of the crashes here has forced Dan Mullen to nickname the Master Cup race the annual Automotive Acrobatics Show, or something to that extent. So that's something that's interesting indeed. Race is 100 laps long, nothing really else to talk about, so let us get to the race. For the second week in a row, John Alexander wins the Carlos P1 award with Justin Slade, also for the second week in a row, starting in second. Andy Pearson, last week's winner, is starting in third, with Lawrence Burr starting on his outside. However, unlike last week, Alexander's actually going to get a good start and pull ahead of Justin Slade and pull out a little bit of a gap by the time they get to turn 2. Like I mentioned earlier, this track is triangular in shape, so there is only 3 turns, and Alexander's going to lead the first lap. However, just like at Memphis, trouble's going to strike early. Rick Lewis is going to bounce off the wall exiting turn 1. He's then going to bounce off of Stanley Parsons and then spin himself out. That's going to bring out the first caution of the day on lap 3, which I believe is the same lap the first caution came out at Memphis. John Alexander will continue to lead on the restart as nobody pitted under that caution. Then Alexander's going to immediately duck to the inside of the track as he's got a problem. Cut tire on the 75 car as he's now really slow coming into turn 1. He obviously must have ran over some debris under the caution and is now feeling the effects from it now that they're under green flag conditions. He's going to bring that car to pit road and he's going to lose a lap as a result. Tough break for Alexander as this is the second week in a row that he's had to make an unscheduled stop under green in the early stages of the race. That's going to give the lead to Justin Slade, but he will not hold it for long as Andy Pearson's got a run on him exiting turn 3, and he's going to lead the lap as they come to the start-finish line. But the problems wouldn't end for Slade just yet as he's now receiving pressure from Lawrence Burr for second, and I think he may have hit the wall there. Slade's now going to move back to third. However, he's now going to receive pressure from Luther Austin for third as Slade continues to drop through the field. But it wouldn't end there as Slade's going to get into the wall again, this time coming out of turn 2, and is going to lose another spot as it appears that Slade may be experiencing some handling issues with that one car as he's dropped from 1st to 6th in the course of a couple of laps. Meanwhile, we got a bout for the lead brewing between Andy Pearson and Lawrence Burr. Burr tries to find a run on Pearson going through turn 2. They are now side by side, and it looks like Burr's going to take the lead, and Pearson now has to worry about Luther Austin, who is right behind Burr, as Pearson now tries to fight back on the outside as he's going to get into the wall now. He's going to lose a ton of spots as well, and he cuts in front of Kelly Splicin. That was a close one there, as that could have ended badly. But anyway, one of the spots he lost was to Justin Slade, who has worked his way back to 4th, as Pearson now tries to take the position back from him as they're going down the front stretch. They're a little ways back behind the top 3 now, which are Burr, Austin, and Angel Gray. Slade actually trying to fight back on the outside, but there's very little he can do up there. Sarah Carlisle running behind these two, having an amazing start. Slade's around! Slade's going to hit the wall for the 3rd time in 4 laps, but this time he's going to bounce off into Sarah Carlisle, and that's going to spin him out. He's then going to get hit by Patrick Johansson and back into the wall again. And just when you think the wreck is over, here comes the rest of the field as he then gets hit by Billy Ray Smith-Thompson, who really has nowhere to go. And Smith-Thompson's going to get clobbered by Daniel Kelly. Luckily, that's a passenger side impact for Smith-Thompson. And that's going to take your points leader out of the race, as well as Smith-Thompson and Kelly. A few cars would decide to pit under this caution. Andy Pearson is the first among them. It's mostly cars that were either in the wall or cars that were involved in the wreck. For Pearson's case, he got the wall earlier. Just to see Johnson Clapp come in, he hit the wall as well. Everybody else that's coming in now were involved in the wreck. Lawrence Burr is going to lead on the restart. John Alexander is the first car 1 lap down. He's actually the only car 1 lap down. And Burr's going to get a nice jump over Austin, and that's going to allow Alexander to pull in behind Burr. Remember, Alexander is still on pace, so he's trying to get his lap back, at the same time trying not to be a nuisance to the leaders as he now tries to make a run under Burr. Now, if I were Burr, I wouldn't want to play around with Alexander too much, especially if I have Luther Austin at my heels. And in another lap, Alexander will finally get around Burr to get his lap back, but that comes at a price as Luther Austin now has a run on Burr for the lead, as they're going to be side by side as they exit turn 2 and into turn 3, and as these two are racing each other, Gio Arias, who's now in third, is right behind the two of them as they now into turn 1. Austin can't exactly clear Burr just yet. Alexander's behind. The pace car lights are just turned on. Caution is out. But the question is now who's going to lead them back to the caution as Austin gets a much better run exiting turn 2 and is going to clear Burr to take the lead and lead everybody back to the caution. Here's what brought out the caution. Alan Cavanero is going to push into Johnson Clapp and is going to flip himself over once. Those guys are teammates, right? Well, that's going to make for an awkward team meeting at Peak Williamson Race Tech. But anyway, Clapp and Cavanero will continue. Just before the caution, Sarah Carlisle is going to smack the wall exiting turn 2. How is this relevant, you may ask? It's because she'll be the only one of the leaders to come into pit road under this caution to repair that damage, and she will do so from 8th. She will still remain on the lead lap, however. Luther Austin would lead on the restart with Lawrence Burr starting in 2nd. There are no cars 1 lap down, so there's nobody starting on the inside. Austin gets a decent start as they go into turn 1. Single file throughout turn 1 as no one's really making any moves just yet. Austin does pull away from Burr a little bit as they go through 2. Burr tries to peek under Austin, but it looks like as they're exiting turn 3, Austin's going to lead the lap. But it wouldn't be that way for long as Burr's then going to take the lead from Austin. He's also going to lose 2nd to Gio Arias and 3rd to Kelly Splicin. Austin's going to drop back to 4th. As you also see in the shot there, Angel Gray still having an amazing run in 5th. Texas World winner Stanley Parsons in 6th. And Henry Santos having an amazing run in 7th. Mike Malone's going to smack the wall exiting turn 2 and is going to bounce into Aubrey Wood. That was another almost sketchy moment there, as Malone's then going to get passed by Alex Witt. But Malone, even though he's having a subpar day today, this is probably by far the best run he's had so far, as this is the farthest he's made it in a Super Series race this season. Kind of surprising for a guy that won 2 Regional Cup races last season. But a few laps later, Wood and Malone would get the wall again, this time in turn 1, and they're going to lose even more spots. I don't know if actually Malone got the wall. I know Wood did. It's kind of hard to tell being that Malone was behind Wood. But anyway, both of them are now running around 20th. Kelly Splicin having an amazing 2nd start in that 36 car, subbing for Tristan Bain, as the top 2 are kind of pulling away from her a bit. We didn't really get to talk about her at Memphis, but she had a kind of a quiet race until she was taken out in a wreck under caution late in the race. But Splicin is one of the drivers in this Super Series field that does have Elite Series experience. As a matter of fact, she actually won one of the Elite Series races at Talladega last season. She actually has quite a bit of Elite Series experience, as a matter of fact, and she's using that to good use here, currently running in 3rd. And as we were talking about that, Gio Arias has taken the lead from Lawrence Burr. No, wait, Burr's trying to fight back, but outside isn't really the line. I think Burr just hit the wall there, and Burr's going to drop back to 3rd, and Arias is safely in the lead. Aubrey Wood is going to get into the wall again in turn 1, and on an irrelevant note, John Alexander moving his way through the field after getting his lap back, but Wood, handling in that car must obviously be going, as she now got passed by her teammate Sarah Carlisle. This is where the most action on the track probably is right now. Angel Gray leads this train of about 10 cars, or she did, as she just got passed by Stanley Parsons. That was for the 5th position, and now Henry Santos now making a move on Parsons, and Gray is now going to lose 7th to Kiefer Glanville. Was Gray actually holding these cars up, and that's why there was a train formed behind her? But anyway, Santos now in the 5th position. Glanville now making a move on Parsons for 6th. As you see in the back of this pack, Andy Pearson is now back in the running. He's running behind his son Matt. And also, Bill Calhoun having an amazing run so far. And you probably noticed Glanville and Santos immediately pulled away from this group, and Parsons and Gray are starting to do the same. The leaders are now going to encounter lap traffic in the form of Alan Cavanero and Robert Prescott. Cavanero, of course, flipped the car over in the last caution, and Prescott's just slow, as he always is. And the leaders are now going to catch up to Cavanero, and Cavanero is actually going to give them a little bit of difficulty, but Arias is soon going to get around him, Splicin as well, and he's then going to hold up Burr a little bit, and that's going to allow Luther Austin to try to go for 3rd, and now Arias and Splicin now get around Prescott. But it wouldn't end there, as Cavanero's then going to give Kiefer Glanville some problems, who's running in the 6th position. Henry Santos got around him just fine, and Prescott got into the wall. That car's been all over the place today, and Cavanero is still not getting out of Glanville's way, and you can see how far Santos is already pulled ahead of Glanville. And as they come out of turn 3, Glanville's then gonna finally peek under Cavanero and get around him before Stanley Parsons can get to him. Andy Pearson is now finally worked his way back into the top 10, as he just got around Tommy Ashby for 9th. Pearson was put into the back after he pitted during the lap 13 caution. He's done a great job moving up through the field, as he's got that 15 or so lap fresher tires than everybody else, while the rest of the field is still on the same tires they started the race on, as Pearson just got around Angel Gray for 8th. Back up front, Lawrenceburg now trying to make a move on Kelly Splicin for the 2nd position as they exit turn 1. He tries to peek under her going into turn 2. They're side by side now, and Burr should get the spot as they go through turn 3. However, he's still a ways back of Gio Arias, who has pulled away a bit. John Alexander is now back in the top 15 after falling a lap down early in the race due to a cut tire. He's taking a sweep. Whoa! Matt Pearson bounces off the wall coming out of turn 1 and almost into the side of Aubrey Wood. And just to show you how close that was, here's an onboard shot of Bill Calhoun, who was right behind them. As you see Pearson bounce off the wall, that was extremely close, as we've seen a number of cars do that today. Oh, it's a problem with Ramirez. A flat tire on the 64 car of Osvaldo Ramirez, as he's extremely... Oh, Calhoun actually got into the side of him. But anyway, Ramirez is going to bring that car into pit road, and he's going to lose 2 laps. Henry Santos has caught up to Luther Austin, and is going to get under him as they enter turn 3, and is going to take the 4th position. Santos has had a pretty rough season so far. He wrecked out at Texas World. He had a slew of problems at Memphis, which caused him to finish 3 laps down, although he still finished 17th due to the attrition. But an amazing run so far for Santos. Sarah Carlisle is now going to get into the wall entering turn 1, and is going to bounce off into Matt Pearson. Perhaps both of the Desert Star Motorsports cars may be experiencing some handling. Oh, and Pearson comes back onto the track into Carlisle. I think that may have been payback as Carlisle drives away, but Matt Pearson, after being hit by Sarah Carlisle after she bounced off the wall, goes down through the grass, and he doesn't let off the gas at all. It goes right into the side of Carlisle, as if that was his plan from the beginning. Make of that what you will, but he did not let off the gas when he went through the grass. However, that will take Pearson out of the race. Carlisle would continue, but would lose a lap on pit road from repairs. And I don't think the officials are going to be too happy with Pearson. Who am I kidding? It's FARC. Everybody's going to come into pit road under this caution, which comes out a few laps after halfway. Gio Arias leads them down. However, Arias is going to experience some problems on pit road as he's exiting his stall. He's going to run into Johnson Clapp, who then turns him, entering his stall. Keegan Mallory gets a piece of it as well. Okay, what's with this vengeful driving the last few laps? And on pit road is not the place for that. But Clapp probably had a reason, probably out of frustration, because as Arias was unaffected by that contact, Clapp would actually suffer some internal damage and would actually spend 3 laps on pit road to fix it. Matter of fact, he would actually miss the restart. So Clapp was probably just frustrated. But again, pit road's not the place for that kind of driving. Andy Pearson, John Alexander, Rick Lewis, and Patrick Johansson all stayed out under that caution. Gio Arias will restart in 5th. These 4 actually pitted under the lap 13 caution. Well, actually, Alexander pitted before that caution because he cut a tire on the lap 8 restart. While Alexander and Pearson are on pace, Lewis and Johansson were involved in earlier incidents, so they may not be on pace with everybody else. And in the middle of this is Osvaldo Ramirez. So, oh, there's a wreck in the back there. Caution is out again. As I was saying, Ramirez, who was 2 laps down, passing Pearson to get one of his laps back. Alexander now under Pearson to take the lead because of that, and Alexander, the pole sitter, who fell a lap down early in the race, is going to be back on point to lead them to the caution. Ramirez is now only 1 lap down. Patrick Johansson was holding everybody up behind him, causing a 3-wide situation that's going to cause Al Cavanero to turn himself around. He's then going to get hit by Kiefer Glanville, who's going to get hit by Bill Calhoun, and at this point the track is blocked and more cars pile into it, and Cavanero runs into the back of Glanville just because he feels like it. Everybody, for the most part, did their best to avoid that. Glanville actually slows down for the wreck, but then runs into Cavanero. Then he's run into by Bill Calhoun. And after that, there's really nowhere for anybody else to go, as Glanville almost flipped over after being hit by Miranda Leckliner before being hit again by Cavanero. Other cars involved include Aubrey Wood, Riley Durbin, Roy Cook, and some others may have gotten a small piece of it. A lot of cars would end up with significant damage, but only Calhoun and Cavanero would retire from the race from this. John Alexander would lead on the restart. Sarah Carlisle's the first car 1 lap down. Alexander's going to get a nice jump over Andy Pearson as they cross the line. Pearson's now going to get around Carlisle as the rest of the lead group's going to get held up by the slower lap cars, and that includes Robert Prescott, who's the slowest car in the field. Also included there is Johnson Clapp, who's 3 laps down. Alex Wood's going to get a little aggressive trying to get around the lap traffic, and it's going to put Miranda Leckliner and himself into the wall, and another pileup ensues. Many cars involved again. That's like the back quarter of the field. Stanley Parsons hit the inside wall pretty hard. Angel Gray involved. Roy Cook again, Kenny Brillin, Charles Gilbert, James West, and Frank Azaretto all involved as well. We're focusing on Frank Azaretto now just to see if we can see what caused the pileup, which started after the initial accident. It looks like Gray tried to avoid hitting Witt. She cuts in front of Stanley Parsons, and he's going to hit hard into the inside wall. He actually gets off the ground. The front stretch is the worst place for these kind of accidents to happen, because once these things start off, there's nowhere to go.
I don't think we're damaged that bad, but Alex, what the fuck were you thinking?
And that was Azaretto putting his 2 cents in on his teammates' driving, F-bombs and all. But anyway, Parsons, Witt, West, Leckliner, and Cook would all retire from the race. And I think it's an important thing to note that Leckliner and Cook are the only drivers to not finish a race this season. Sean Alexander will continue to lead on the restart, but this time it's Osvaldo Ramirez, the first car 1 lap down, as he's now got the perfect opportunity to get back on the lead lap here. Remember, he was 2 laps down after he pitted under green for a flat tire, and Ramirez is going to pass Alexander like it was nothing. Now all he needs is a caution, and Alexander gets back down before Andy Pearson can get under him. Rick Lewis, who has been dropping like a rock since choosing to stay out 2 cautions ago, is going to hit the turn 1 wall, bounce off into Henry Santos and Frank Azaretto, and that is the same thing he did on lap 3, which caused the first caution. However, unlike then, this is going to result in a much bigger accident, and there's more wrecking. Alright, what is happening with these last few laps? I have no idea. Let's take another look at that, riding along with Henry Santos, as that was totally out of Santos' and Azaretto's control. Santos would have been fine until he gets hit by Charles Gilbert, and that's going to leave Santos with a decent amount of damage. Tough break for Santos, who is having an amazing run today and has been the bright spot of what's been a rough start to the season for him. Now focusing on Gilbert, as you really can't fault him for that. He committed to the top. He thought he was going to have an opening, and instead runs into Santos, and afterwards he's going to run into Patrick Johansson and put him into the wall, and that's going to finish Johansson off. But anyway, the hit with Santos is going to take Gilbert out of the race, and it has been a miserable start to the season for the defending East champion. Now riding along with Angel Gray, who avoided the initial wreck. We're going to see things from her perspective as the wreck happens now. She does a great job of avoiding it, and Frank Azaretto comes in and gets into the side of her and causes Gray to almost go into Aubrey Wood, as you see the incident between Gilbert and Johansson happen in front of her as well. Only Gilbert and Johansson would retire from the race from this. Santos and Azaretto would continue, but with a considerable amount of damage. But anyway, let's move on to the restart, which came out with exactly 20 laps to go. John Alexander continues to lead, and he gets another nice jump over Pearson. That's going to allow Johnson Clapp, who is 3 laps down, to get in between the both of them. I really don't see no point of Clapp racing these guys, being that he is 3 laps down. And if we got a green-white checkered, he would still start that, as all cars up to 3 laps down would start it. But one thing we're forgetting about, Clapp actually has fresher tires than both Alexander and Pearson, as he, along with a majority of the rest of the field, pitted on the lap 57 caution, while Alexander and Pearson haven't pitted since the lap 13 caution. Alexander actually pitted sooner than that, as he cut a tire on the lap 8 restart. So Clapp is running times faster than Alexander and Pearson, as he's now having to run under Alexander now, trying to get one of his laps back. There's still really no point for Clapp to do this, because it doesn't really benefit him, but he's faster, so he's taking advantage, and Pearson's also going to take advantage of this opportunity to take the lead from Alexander, but Lawrence Burr and Luther Austin, who also have fresher tires, are closing in. There would be an incident towards the back of this pack. Frank Azaretto is going to push into Henry Santos coming out of turn 3. Santos is going to slide the car, and Angel Gray is going to run right in the back of him. As things continue to unravel for Santos, of course he was involved in the last caution. He drives away. The caution does not come out for this. Same thing with Azaretto, who was involved in the last wreck as well. They actually had to rip the entire front end off of that car as he causes this incident. Azaretto has proven time and time again that he has a tendency, when things start to unravel for him, so does his driving, and he does silly mistakes like this. And you can imagine what his radio must be sounding like right now. However, I'm getting calls from the trailer to cut it out with Azaretto's radio chatter, because I think some people are starting to get offended by Azaretto's use of profanity. Get Frank Azure in this booth, it'd be 10 times worse. But the real victim in this is Angel Gray, as that impact busted the radiator on that 88 car, and she would go out of the race from what looked like an easy top 10 run. This is the same kind of luck that plagued her in trucks last season and prevented her from, to be honest, winning the truck championship. Hopefully this isn't a trend this season. Meanwhile, things are heating up front as Andy Pearson is still trying to take the lead from John Alexander, but Lawrence Burr is right behind the both of them now. Due to Alexander and Pearson being on older tires, they've kind of formed a train behind them. As you can see how far Johnson Clapp has pulled away from them, and Pearson can't make a move on Alexander and falls back in line behind him. And behind them, Kelly Splicens's trying to get under Luther Austin for the 4th position as they go into turn 2. They are side by side now. Splicen should get the run she needs going into turn 3, and it looks like she will eventually take the spot. But in front of her, Lawrence Burr is now starting to pounce on the top 2 as he's gotten around Pearson and now tries to take the lead from Alexander. Splicey gets around Pearson as well. Pearson continuing to lose spots. He now loses 4th to Gio Arias. Burr waiting for the right moment to make the move on Alexander, and he does. Going into turn 2, Lawrence Burr takes the lead of this race with just about 10 laps to go. Meanwhile, this is the battle for 10th between Frank Azaretto and Riley Durbin. Both of these cars are considerably damaged. As you can see, there's no one ahead of them for miles. I'm actually surprised Azaretto's still able to pass cars, considering there's no front end on that car, but Durbin has also had his share of problems today, and those two are going to continue to battle it out in the closing laps. Now that Alexander and Pearson have been dislodged from the front, the leader's going to quickly reel back in Johnson Clapp, who pulled away from the two of them, and being that these guys are faster, they're going to quickly get around Clapp to put him back 3 laps down. As you probably saw, the top 3 have pulled away from Luther Austin in 4th, while the rest of the field still tries to get around Pearson and Alexander. Osvaldo Ramirez, who was 2 laps down earlier in this race after coming to pit under green for a flat tire, is now in the 7th position and looks like he's going to get the 6th position from Andy Pearson. And you can definitely see a difference as Pearson's tires are about 40 laps older than the rest of the fields. And just like his teammate Lawrence Burr did at Memphis last week, he has gotten both of those laps back and has since been passing cars like he's the star of a bad racing movie. Well, maybe not to that extent. They are only 13 cars on the lead lap, some of which are damaged. So Ramirez didn't have to work too hard to get up this far. Well, not as hard as Burr did at Memphis. But he still had to make up 2 laps before he could even think about finishing in the top 10, as he now has a run on Tommy Ashby for the 5th spot. Ashby having another amazing run today, but Ramirez is going to easily take the 5th spot. The leader, Lawrence Burr, is going to take the white flag as he's got a decent cushion over 2nd place Kelly Splicen. As you see lap traffic ahead of them, I don't think they're going to be a factor before the end of this race. And Burr is actually pulling away from Splicing as they go through turn 2. Splicing can't make a run. The lap traffic is not going to be a problem, and Lawrence Burr will win the race here at Carbondale. Kelly Splicen will have to settle for 2nd, but still an amazing run in only her 2nd start in that 36 car. Gio Arias finishes in 3rd, just like he has the first 2 races. Luther Austin gets his best finish of the year in 4th. Great run by Austin for being one of the front runners all day. Osvaldo Ramirez, once again, coming back from 2 laps down to finish in 5th. giving both M&J cars a top 5 finish. Tommy Ashby with another great run in 6th. Pole setter John Alexander, who faded late due to having older tires, is going to finish in 7th, but along with getting the pole, he also leads the most laps, which will give him 20 bonus points, and he actually scores more points than Kelly Splicin in 2nd. Mike Malone finally has a good run in 8th, considering he hasn't made it past lap 20 in a race this season, so he needed this. Andy Pearson, much like Alexander, faded late due to older tires. He finishes in 9th, and despite having the front end cut off of that car, Frank Azaretto beats Riley Durbin for the final top 10 spot, and also gets the hard charger bonus as he started 33rd. So let's now take a look at the points after 3 races. We now have a tie for the points lead. Lawrence Burr and Gio Arias are tied with 234 points. However, the tiebreaker is Lawrence Burr has a win, Arias does not, despite Arias not finishing worse than 3rd this season. Arias is the only driver to finish in the top 5 all 3 races. He's in fact the only driver to finish in the top 10 all 3 races. And he's the only driver to finish every lap this season. John Alexander sits 3rd, 10 points behind Arias and Burr, despite not having a top 5 finish this season. However, Alexander does have 2 poles, which is 20 points right there. Andy Pearson is 4th, 32 points behind the 2 leaders. Justin Slade, who was the points leader entering today, takes a hard hit in the standings. He's now 34 points out of the lead after wrecking out early. Johnson Claps drops down to 6th after finishing 3 laps down today. Then after that, there's about a 20-point gap between Clap and 7th place, which is Stanley Parsons, who did not finish today. And then we got a 3-way tie for 8th. Luther Austin gets that spot considering he has a top 5 finish. Frank Azaretto gets the 9th spot considering he has a top 10 finish. And Keegan Mallory is the 3rd among them considering he doesn't have either. Matter of fact, the fact that he's tied for 8th in the first place is a fluke of its own. So 3 races in, we're now starting to get an idea on who the major players are going to be to contend for the championship, as the Super Series will join the Elite Series at the Toledo Speedway in Ohio. The first of 3 races in Ohio, to be exact.